It's been said that you always fear what you don't understand, and the people of Kirsten, Maine didn't understand Davis Gilbert. I didn't understand what I'd done to deserve being his nephew. He ran the lighthouse on Crooked Man Island. A cramped chunk of granite stuck out just beyond Karsten Harbor, invisible from shore, with its thick fog hanging around it like a gauze that never went away. The only sign that something was out there was the insistent beam of light steadily poking through. It was a shroud of uncertainty that made everyone close their blinds whenever his rickety little skiff puttered into the docks. Given this cult of anxiety he'd created just by existing, the discovery that he'd flat out disappeared was like dumping hot coffee on a cat. Then my cousin Miles showed up on my porch looking like he hadn't slept in a week, clutching a rumpled letter from Davis in his grubby fist. I took him into the kitchen for some oatmeal, and rather than sit and listen to the atrocity of him eating, I lit a cigarette by the sink and pored over the letter. Miles, heading out, got some things need done southerly. Watch the old place till I'm back. Always got to be someone to man the lighthouse. D. Cryptic as all hell, sure. And it didn't help that it looked like it was written with a charcoal stick from a fire pit and not a pencil, but the points seemed pretty obvious. What was the harm in watching the old shack until Davis returned? Miles balked at the prospect, so I told him I'd come along to make him feel better. A day later, Miles' slapdash dinghy bore us into the dismal fog surrounding Crooked Man Island. It had been years since I'd set foot on that moss-covered shit pile, but I was still astounded by how ugly it was. Its grotesque topography changed as suddenly as a shift from man to werewolf, staggering up and out like a bony finger pointed at the sky. The lighthouse jutted off the top like a hangnail, followed by a sudden plummet straight down to hell. And despite everything looking like there should have been a constant and unbearable gale of wind, the air was always uncomfortably still. The first few nights were fun, mostly because of Miles' reactions to the house's unearthly noises so common in old buildings. Eventually, though, his jumpiness threw a wet blanket on everything. He'd always been a spaz, but his erratic behavior on the island was something different. He'd stand out on the cliff's edge, chain-smoking camels and twitching like demons would leap out of the fog to devour him. I wasn't sure if he even slept. A week of this and I, 102, wanted to go home just to be away from him, so we agreed to head back on the weekend. Instructions be damned. Incidentally, our last night in the lighthouse brought in one of the worst storms I'd ever seen, raging well into the night as we drifted off to sleep. I was yanked into wakefulness by the colossal sound of breaking glass from somewhere up in the tower. I started to talk to Miles, only to discover that he wasn't in his bunk. I found him in the kitchen, but the picture that greeted me replaced my satisfaction with clammy fingers of trepidation. A cheap nightlight washed the room in a feeble yellow glow. Miles stood perfectly still with his back to me, his bathrobe hanging open with the belt dangling on the floor, gazing at the stairs leading up to the tower. "Miles?" I asked hesitantly. His head turned slightly. "What the hell are you doing, man?" I didn't intend for the last word to come out with a querulous tremor, but it matched my rising sense of foreboding. "We have to go up," he droned. "It's probably a broken window, man. Are you okay? Maybe we should call somebody." When he spoke again, his voice was strangled by restrained tears. "I'm sorry, man. We have to go up." Without another word, he glided up the stairs and out of sight. I stood rooted to the floor, my uncertainty now a seething panic. If Miles had finally snapped and was now a danger to himself, the thought of him doing something rash that I could have prevented sent me bounding up the stairs after him. The strobing flashes of lightning made it difficult to see, and staying calm seemed impossible as adrenaline pounded through me, making the shadows look increasingly like hazy figures clawing at me from the walls. Upon reaching the top, I saw the winds had indeed broken the glass and was howling in and around the tower like a banshee. Yet, as I noticed this, I became aware of a different fact. Miles wasn't up there, and as I thought this, I felt an impact in the floor. Miles had dropped down behind me from the ceiling. Somehow, tears streamed down his face, but inexplicably, he was also smiling. Maybe I screamed. 103, he said. "I'm sorry. This is how it has to be." One shove to my chest, and I careened through the glass. And Davis Gilbert was there, standing next to his smiling, weeping son. He wasn't smiling. He was nodding slowly. Then he was gone. I've fallen to my death 1,000 times in my dreams. Maybe this is a dream, and I only need the impact to wake up. Maybe my death wasn't a bargaining chip to release my uncle's soul from the curse of wandering the lighthouse forever. Maybe I'm not still out there, waiting for my turn to escape. Maybe the townsfolk were right to fear Davis Gilbert. Maybe there's more to Crooked Man Island than anyone knew. Maybe there's always got to be someone to man the lighthouse.